What's up, Dream Builder? Are you someone who's interested in creating a life by your design through all things real estate? Well, I can assure you, you are in the right place. Join me, your host, Casanova Brooks. I'm an award-winning real estate agent and investor as we uncover the top tips, strategies, and the mindset of the top real estate entrepreneurs across the world. Stay locked in because we're about to go on a journey that will change your life. What's up, Dream Nation? We are back again with another real estate episode. And this one right here, I'm very excited about because we're going to learn about branding. We're going to learn about social media. And we're going to learn about everything that's relevant in today's world when it comes to real estate. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming Mr. Jimmy Rex to the show. Jimmy, you want to go ahead and say what's up to Dream Nation?
What's up, Dream Nation? Thanks for having me on, man. It's fun to be able to share some things.
Absolutely, man. It's a pleasure to have you on here. Now, I always like to make sure that we can give the proper introduction. And for anybody who's not familiar with you, your team, and your brand, I always love to think of real estate agents as the purest form of entrepreneurs. And I love to think of entrepreneurs as superheroes. And the reason why is because we're constantly putting on capes and we're flying around the world and we're trying to solve problems. So before you became this mega agent that has a team that you guys did almost 325 transactions last year, if I'm correct, as well as now you've done over 2,000 homes and considered by many to be the top real estate agent in the state of Utah. Before all of that, if we could take it back to when you were just a young boy, tell me, who is Jimmy Rex?
Yeah, man. I always, even when I was a little kid, I always wanted to be somebody. I was a big dreamer, big thinker. And I remember when I was a little kid, I was just hustling all the time. Like I was always selling stuff out in front of my house. And I remember I was just always trying to find angles and do things a little bit differently. And so I was this little conniving little kid and a little hustler. But when I was in high school, I won class clown. I just enjoyed the process of watching human development, watching people react different ways to things that I would do and try. And so always been a person willing to put it out there, and in life in general, that pays off big time. And so I've always had a fun, interesting career. I always did stuff, even in real estate. I've done stuff quite a bit different than anybody else. But as a kid, I was just a rambunctious little guy, man. I remember my sister tells a story once. I went to Shopko. I barely even remember. I was probably 7 or 8, but they were selling the theater-sized boxes of hot tamales for 30 cents. And I knew they were worth $1. So I borrowed $10 from my dad. I bought 30 boxes. I went door to door and made like $20 that day by the time I paid my dad back, selling them for $1. And that was like the beginning of my entrepreneurship. I've just always been looking at stuff like that ever since.
Man, I love it. Now tell me, where did real estate come in for you? Because there's a lot of things that you could have sold. Did you have family that was already in real estate? Was your parents in real estate?
So when I was a little kid, my dad did real estate for a time, but he was in the early 80s when it crashed. And so I remember the tail end of that. That was like, my dad had an office and he had these ERA signs and stuff, but he wasn't like a real estate agent. He got into the insurance business after that and did really well. But I had gotten my associate's degree in 2004, and I was trying to go to this major university, and I was pretty naive. I didn't know you have to apply 6 months to it in advance to a major university. And so I went in to go to school like the week they were opening for classes. They're like, you didn't even apply. And so I had basically 6 months with nothing to do. And one of my buddies was like, I'm going to get my real estate license. You should come do it with me. And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. And so I got my license, and I'd been listening to some CDs on tape, like Carlton Sheets, No Money Down, Robert Allen, Robert Kiyosaki, and it sparked my interest. And so I started selling, and that was in 2005. I was 23, 24 years old. And it just blew up right away, took off. And so I've been doing that ever since.
Got it. Now, when you mentioned Carlton Sheets and definitely Robert Kiyosaki, that's more along the lines of investing. So did you get in with the mindset that you wanted to be an investor and then real estate as an agent would just be second, or?
Yeah. So what happened was I knew worst case scenario, I could do my own deals and save on the commission. I remember my sister-in-law, my brother was buying a house, and they were talking about this MLS, and she was so mad she didn't have access to the MLS. I'm like, what is that? Only realtors get access to it, but you can see every house that's for sale. And I was like, wow, that's cool. And so I was piqued with my curiosity. So I was like, I'll get my license and then I can do my own deals, but also maybe I'll do some deals on the side. And so when I first started, I didn't even know if I wanted to be an agent. I just got my license, do my own deals. And but then in my spare time, I had a brother be like, hey, list my house for sale. And then when I was selling his house, I had another guy that wanted to buy it that needed to list his house for sale. And next thing I knew, I was like, shoot, this is a really cool way to make some money. And so that first 6 months, I was half in, half out, sold 4 or 5 homes. And then I discovered coaching, Mike Ferry coaching, and I started doing that. And from month 7 to month 12, I closed over 50 houses and just never looked back.
Wow. Wow. What was it about that? Like, what did you discover during that coaching that allowed you to really scale your business from month 7 to month 12?
Yeah, business is a lot different today than it was back then. Like back then, if your broker didn't have good training, you didn't have any good training. There was no training on YouTube. There was no national coaching and training. I remember like for the first 6 months, I didn't like real estate because I didn't know what I was doing. I remember going to the back of the Realtor magazine and I like ordered a CD from some guy that was selling it in the back of that magazine. That's how I was getting trained. And so like when I discovered Mike Ferry's coaching, it was a seminar that came to Utah. And it was everything I ever wanted to know that I wasn't doing. It was how to list for sale by owners, how to work with expired listings, what to say, how to do a listing presentation. I didn't even know what a listing presentation was. And so I got some crazy, like I got into this seminar and every night they'd give us a homework and I'd go home and do the homework and it would like, I'd get a couple of leads and I was like, man, this actually works. This is everything I've ever wanted to know. And I had no problem working hard. I'd served a Mormon mission where you work like 11 hours a day knocking doors. And I'd been a door-to-door meat salesman for 3 years, number one guy doing that. And so I knew how to work hard. I just didn't know what to say or how to say it. So once I learned that, I just was making 40, 50 prospecting calls every single day. Like clockwork. I was calling, when I first started, it would take me about 70 for sell by owners to get an appointment. But very quickly that was cut in half and then cut in half again. And by the time a few years had gone by, I could get a listing appointment from a for sale by owner call, basically 1 out of 12, 1 out of 15. So that's what I did is I just counted the phones for those first couple of years and got a ton of business from it.
Man, I love it. And just like you said, though, the market has changed a lot now. A lot of the information that you normally would have had to pay someone for a CD, that's all free if you're willing to put that same time into YouTube University or whatever else. Now, when a new agent comes to you right now and they say, you know what, I just want to come out and I want to hit the ground running, what's that one thing that you say to them? Or even if they're not new, but they are an agent looking to reinvigorate their career, what's that one thing that you tell them to focus on of where they can drive business today?
Yeah, number one thing I tell people is consistency. That's the thing that people don't want to do. Whether you're calling for sell by owners, doing open houses, calling Zillow leads, doing social media, like whatever you're doing, it's the consistency that wins. That's one of the reasons when you asked me to be on this podcast, I looked it up first to see if you were consistent with it because I don't want to be on some podcast that comes out every 3-4 months. Like you're doing the thing. And so I'm like, all right, this dude's taking this serious. I'll jump on the podcast. Whether you're doing social media, like there's people coming all the time and I get 40, 50% of my leads through social media now, but I'm very consistent with the content. Like I'm always going out of my way to find value to give to my people that are following me and to be able to pitch real estate products and things like that. And so if you're not consistent, it doesn't work. Like with for sale by owners, when I was calling them, no joke, for a 5-year span, I didn't miss a day. Like I called for 3 hours every single day. And I had agents from all over the state. I was with Keller Williams here in Utah, and we have like 1,500 agents at the time in Utah. And so they just knew if anybody wanted to learn how to use call for sale by owners, they would send them to me to watch me. And all these agents would come in and they'd watch me in like one day or like for an hour. And they'd be like, oh, I got it down now. And I'm like, no, you don't. But people would ask me, like, why do you share what you do with everybody and show them? I was like, because they won't do it anyway. The consistency is what wins. So I remember this one guy came in. He was a pretty successful guy in his previous career, but the market had taken him out. This was like 2009, probably 2010. And I remember he watched me for an hour call for sale by owners. And I was like, Mike Ferry used to put me on the stage in front of 3,000 people. Like I could deliver that script better than anybody. And that day I had a really successful day calling for sale by owners. I think I hit 2 or 3 appointments in an hour. And I remember he looked at me and he goes, man, Jimmy, just imagine, and I'm just like 25, 26, and he's this 50-year-old guy that's had a lot of success in his life. But again, he was at a bottom point. And he looks at me and he goes, I'll never forget, it was so funny to me, but he goes, if you're this good at it, just imagine how good I'm going to be at it. And I kept thinking to myself, like, all right, dude, you're up for something. You don't even know it's about to hit you. And when he started calling, he called for 1 hour. He was on my team for an hour. He came back and he just had this look on his face. Like he hit his rock bottom that moment because he's, I can't believe the way these people treat me. Like he thought he was pretty special. And he goes, I'm gonna go get a drink. I'll be back. And he grabbed his stuff. I remember I told my assistant, I go, he's never coming back. He's like, bullshit. I'm like, no, he's not coming back. And sure enough, he never came back. Because he couldn't stand the rejection of it. So it's like the consistency wins. I had days where I'd call 30 or 40 people with no appointment, but I knew my numbers. I knew that I made X amount of money per phone call. I had it written on my wall. I'd done the math. I knew that every single time I picked up that phone and dialed, I made $81 for every single contact, because over time, that was how the ratios put out. And so every time somebody was mean to me or was bad or whatever, it didn't matter. Like I knew every time I picked up the phone, I was making 81 bucks. And so that's what I did consistently every single day. And so whatever you're doing in this business, like there's a million ways to sell real estate. This is pretty obvious. Tom Ferry always says there's no bad way to get a good lead. In real estate, I know I did a book called The Next Wave of Influence in Real Estate, and I interviewed 100 of the top millennial real estate agents in the country. Every single one of them does it a little bit different. Like it doesn't matter what you do. It's the consistency over time that wins. Like falling in love with the monotonousness of this job is where you win in real estate.
I love it. Now, let me ask, because everybody always has a different opinion on this. Do you feel like you need to do everything? Or do you feel like in the world that we live in today, where outsourcing is easier than it's ever been, that someone can still get the same type of results without them doing the action?
It all depends on how much you want to outsource. There's certain things you got to find out what are your money generating activities, right? There's certain things that only you can do great. However, where a big mistake that people make in real estate is thinking that they have to do everything. There's another top agent in my marketplace, and he pulled me aside about a year ago. He goes, you know what your specialty is? You know what you've figured out that no one else has? I was like, what's that? He said, you've somehow been able to convince all of your clients that they never need to work with you. And I said, well, that's part of what I never wanted to be an agent that was tied to the office or tied to his desk. I took 127 days on vacation last year. Literally out of my half of those out of the country, like most of those out of the country. I went to 28 countries last year. I loved it. This morning I was boating all day. This is my life. Like I literally, so I go out and I network and I build relationships and I work the social media and I do those things. I bring in all the business, and then I let my team do their thing. They're much better than me with clients. Like I got one guy on my team that he works with all of our investors. His name's Tyler. The dude is a freaking rock star. Like I give him a client and I can go spend the money. It's done. My brother Dale, like if I give him a buyer, he's on my team as well. Like it's done. I can take it to the bank. And so I've really gotten good at leveraging the stuff that somebody else can do as good or better than me. And mostly it's because I didn't want to be tied to my desk. Like in 2012, I went to Arizona State. I was the number one agent in the county that year, but I went to Arizona State to get my master's in real estate development. And I had to learn to let my team do their thing because I wasn't going to be here. So it was the best thing I ever did is I had to train them to work as if I wasn't here. And so I couldn't physically, I had to learn to take listing appointments over the phone. I learned to let all my buyers trust working with my team and let my assistant do his thing. And so because of that, I'm able to travel and play and do all these other things while my team grows and the people get taken care of much better than they would if I was the one trying to do it all.
Man, I love that. But that's something that a lot of agents have struggled with, is the fact of letting someone else
because they have
do it.
control problems, man. They can't let go of it. Like, you know how many things my team has screwed up over the last 15 years? I love it because they learned a powerful lesson anytime they screw something up. I let my team take stuff and I just tell them, like, they'll ask me, like, what do we do on this? What do we do? I'm like, just figure it out. I don't know. And I've lost deals. I've lost clients. I've lost things. And they're like, geez, dude, like you could have saved that. And I'm like, yeah, but now you know how to do it. And I was always willing to do that because I wanted my team to grow. I didn't want to be stuck to the office. I see these realtors. I'm friends with one of the top realtors in the country. And the dude, when I met him like 7-8 years ago, I was like, dude, you've built this giant thing. And he was talking about, he hadn't seen his kids in 6 days. I was like, what's the point? Like, why are you even doing this? He goes, you've just worked so hard to build it up. I don't want to let any of it go. And I remember feeling sorry for the guy. I wasn't impressed. I didn't want to be him. I just felt sorry for the dude. I'm like, what a miserable life. So for me, like the only fun of getting into real estate was to build this life I always wanted to have. And that's what I've been able to do. And so for me, real estate was never like, I never wanted to be a slave to the industry, but I wanted to give the best service to my clients. So I found great people. I pay them excellent. Nobody can hire away my team because nobody pays them as good as I do. I'm very generous with them, but they're my friends anyway. And so it all works out really well. But agents have a control problem. They want to control everything. Like, it was funny. Like I had a deal the other day and the guy on the other end of it, he goes, dude, you are such a pleasure to work with. You don't create any problems. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, every agent seems like they're trying to like make these issues and things. You just get out of the way and let the thing close. I'm like, yeah, I don't have time for that, dude. I
Right.
got 50 deals under contract. I got to keep these things moving.
What's up, Dream Builder? I hope that you're getting a lot of value from this episode. Note takers are money makers. So I hope that you're taking lots of notes, and I hope that you'll implement something that will help to change your real estate career. If you want even more access, even more resources, and you want a community to help keep you accountable, well, I want to invite you to head on over to DreamNationAcademy.com. Again, that's DreamNationAcademy.com. That's where I hang out as well as the team, and we host so many resources to help you along your real estate journey. So again, that's DreamNationAcademy.com. Let's go ahead and hop back on into it. Got it, man. I love that. And I hope somebody who's in that position right now, whether they are currently building their team or they're thinking about starting a team, that they really focus on the end goal and as what is it that you really want. Because just like you said, many agents, they think that they're escaping the 9 to 5, but then they just own a job and they're slave to the industry. So I think you put that a great way. For someone right now that's looking to try to figure out how can they build their brand through social media, which is something that you've been able to do impeccably over the last couple of years, what's that thing that you recommend? Like where do they even start, and how do they build something as consistent as you have?
Yeah, you have to take it serious. You have to treat it well and you have to be consistent. So what I did is, number one, you got to have some reason for people to want to meet you. So I was just boating right now. One of the guys that we went boating was a guy by the name of Dan Fleischman. He manages over 500 social media accounts. He is the
Yeah.
expert when it comes
I've
to
had
social
Dan
media.
on the show. He's a great
All right.
guy.
So, yeah. So that's who we were boating with just right now. So my point is, like, that guy and I were sharing we've shared so many times, like, stories and things with each other. And the reason why is because I created some value for Dan in his life. Like, I found a way to create value for him. All the other, same thing with the other people on the boat. Like, but my point is, like, everything we're doing with social media, you have to collaborate with other people that are doing big things. The only way to do that is to create value. We actually had a discussion on the boat. Like, we were all laughing because Sean Whalen was on there and Aaron Wagner. They're both pretty big on Instagram and social media as well. And we were laughing because the kind of shit that people like send us in our messages, they'll be like, hey man, I want to, like, people just want to pitch stuff, or they always want to suck. We call them leeches because they drop in and they don't provide any value. And so we were talking about, like, networkers that network the right way, they know how to create value. It's the same thing with social media. You have to create value for people that are following you, for people that are on your stuff. So, like, for me, I'm sharing stuff, I'm sharing positive messages, I'm trying to inspire through showing, like, you can do crazy things with your life. And then I'm just creating value. I'm not trying to sell ever. Like, people that follow me, they're like, I didn't even know you're a real estate agent by following you. But what I do is I use my stories to sell people when it's time. And so I'm never whoring myself out like this guy. Like, too many agents, like, you go to their page and it's just listing after listing after boring real estate stuff. It's like, dude, drop that stuff in, but that should be 20% of what you're posting, not 80%. And so here's the thing is, we have the opportunity through social media to let people get to know us. They know us, they like us, they trust us, they're going to use us. So your social media should be much more about branding yourself so that people get to know you, as opposed to trying to pitch a product all the time. And so I just use my social media to say, look, here's what I'm doing with my life. Here's what's going on. If you want to be a part of my journey, please come watch, come follow, get to know me. And because of that, people reach out to me all the time and they're like, man, I want to have that guy sell my house. Like, that guy seems like he's got some cool stuff going on. So my whole point of bringing that back around is, once you've done that, so you make value and attractiveness are the first two things you need to do to your page. Then you start to collaborate with other people. So that's what I was saying with Dan today, right? So, like, you go to his Instagram right now, you'll see us wakeboarding. He tagged me, I tagged him. I'll get a bunch of new followers. He'll get a bunch of followers that are on mine. You start to collaborate with people doing cool things all over the place. And when you do that, you build a page up and you get a lot more viewers. You can do it in your local community with local restaurants, local people that are like, I started a podcast to get mine going. When I started my podcast, I had 4,000 followers on Instagram. I'm over 60,000 now. And what I did was I started putting all these people in my community, all the top people in my community, onto my podcast. I had a platform now to create some value for them to get their message out. So this year, the governor race is coming down. There's 4 candidates that are up for governor. 3 of them have been on my podcast. And what I did is I put the first guy on. The other 2's campaigns reached out to see if they, could be a part of it as well. So all of a sudden, 3 of the 4 candidates for governor are like on my platform here in Utah. I've been able to get every business entrepreneur, the billionaire, like these top business owners, all these people on my podcast, and I share their message. I let them get their story out. People love it because it creates value for them. And it's all free, of course, but then people want to be a part of that. So they start following you, and that's how you gain traction with social media. But I take it very serious. I spend 15 hours a week building content for my pages so that people have an interest in coming to it. And then I can pitch them through Instagram. And that's where I get the business from. But this isn't something I'm just posting once every 2 or 3 days or trying to post something. Like there's a lot of goes into creating a page worth having. And it's a 6-hour course I teach about this. It's not something I teach right now, but the bottom line is you got to take it serious and make it an absolute pinnacle part of your business.
I love it. I love it. And I dedicate just as much time to my social media. But for somebody out there that right now, that's the reason why they don't have a following, is because they look at it and they say, oh man, it's so much work. Is there one thing that maybe you try to simplify it or dumb it down to say, hey, let's break this up into chunks? Like is there a way for someone to get their following going without saying, man, I don't have, if they think to themselves, I don't have 20 hours a week to dedicate to this. I'm not even doing enough business on my real estate side. What can they do?
If you don't have enough business, you do have enough time. Like I did 324 transactions last year and I spent 127 days on vacation. I am a part owner in 12 different companies. Like you have time. It's just not a priority. Like we're in a coronavirus. All you have is time right now, like still in a lot of places in the country. And so I don't know, like at the end of the day, have fun with it. If it's fun, you'll want to do it. And so have fun with it. Like think about what message do you want to leave? Like for me, the podcast, when I started it out, I was terrible. I really was. Like some of those first podcasts, it's a good thing my guests were good because I was terrible. And I remember Gary Vee, I was watching an interview because I had a goal to have that podcast for like 2 years. And finally I was listening to Gary Vee and he's like, got to just start. You're going to suck at the beginning. You just start. And I did. And that's what I did. And I picked my best friends early on and they were like doing cool things with their lives. And so thankfully it worked. But just start and have fun with it. And for me, I said, if I never get anything from this podcast, at least I'll be able to leave something to posterity where they'll be able to go back and learn a little bit about me, learn a little bit about the people I was associating with. And so I was like, you know what? For me, that's worth it alone. I'm going to do this as a hobby, as something I want to do. But I've had so many deals and so much business come through doing that podcast. Now we're over 200 episodes and it's fun, man. And so you have to just find fun in it. What are you good at? If you're good at video, if you're good at photo, I just found ways to make all my hobbies became how I sell real estate. Like I've gotten more clients by going on vacations. I get big groups of people and we go do big trips all the time. If you follow me, you'll see every weekend it seems like we got a group going somewhere and doing something. But I've sold so many houses by doing that. And I just fit it into what I like to do anyways. And so that's the best thing I can tell you is what do you already like to do? Start talking about it on your social media, start doing it, mix in a little bit of real estate, watch the thing grow, and then it'll take off.
I love it. Now, you've been able to build this big team. A lot of people, they struggle. And I just had a buddy of mine give me a call yesterday and he said, you know what, now business is starting to come in for me, but now it feels like I never have enough time. And one of the best quotes that I heard in the beginning in real estate was, if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant. Now, it sounds like for you, especially to be able to do 324 transactions, you have a couple people that help you. When do you think is the right time for someone to go out and try to seek help? Should they be doing it up front, or what does that look like to you?
Sure. So my team's actually pretty small. So I have 2 admin and then there's 3 other agents besides me. That's it. I like to look at us as like a ninja team, dude. Everyone on my team makes $500,000 bucks. Even our admins make several $100,000 a year because they're very good at what they do. So for me, I don't have this giant team. I think there's this fallacy in real estate. You got to have these giant teams. Like I see some of the teams that they'll like 20 or 30 people. I'm like, this is not a team. Like everyone on your team is freaking paycheck to paycheck. For me, I always wanted to be around the most talented people, and it's taken a long time to build that. But I like Mike Ferry's advice on this. He says, for every 40 transactions you do, you should probably have another team member. So like, if you're doing 40 or more deals a year or close to that, you should probably have an admin or a part-time admin. At 80, you should probably have a buyer's agent. At 120, you should probably have another buyer's agent. And then from there, depends on how talented they are. But like my assistant is like talented enough to take the roles of 3 normal employees. No joke. He's amazing. And so nobody can ever hire him away. And not only is my best friend, he's the most highly compensated admin in the state. But I love that because he's able to, like, I got 5 offers on houses last night. and he handled all of it. I was playing softball all night. He took care of all of it for me. And so he's just really good at all that stuff. And so I don't have to worry about it.
I love it, man. I love it. For you, when you first, obviously, you've been in the business for a long time now. Was there ever a book or a podcast that you were listening to early on that allowed you to elevate your mindset at such a fast pace?
I read my first 5-10 years in the business, I was reading between 50 and 100 books a year. Yeah, I think there's a million great books out there.
Like if I'm a new agent, I come to you, I say, Jimmy, I gotta level up, man. I need this first year to be my best year ever. Like what's that one book that you're gonna tell me that can really help me to at least start to gain some momentum?
Yeah, that's the problem. There is no one book. If you want to be the best, you need to invest a lot. You should get a personal coach, either Mike Ferry or Tom Ferry, or one of those guys like Brian Buffini. Those guys have awesome programs for new agents. There's not one book. Like, I don't know, one of the first books I read out of the gate was called A Shark Never Sleeps. And it was just a book about Drew Rosenhaus, actually, his story when he was an agent in college. He was a sports agent, and like just about how tenacious he was. But I was always reading. It's like eating, dude. You can't just not. There's not one book's going to change your life. It's like with the podcast. A lot of people think like once I get so and so on the podcast, that'll change everything. That's not how it works. It's consistency over time. I've had some huge names on my podcast. No one gives a shit. Like it's one more podcast. Like you have to just. It's the consistency, and so it's not one book. It's reading a half hour, an hour a day is what's going to make the difference. It's not one podcast. It's actually implementing the stuff you're learning on podcasts. Like you could listen to this podcast alone. And if you don't go implement any of the things I said, or you're not writing this down, like I literally prospected 3 hours a day for 5 years straight because I wanted to be the best. I spent more money. I've spent over $500,000 on coaching and training since I got into this industry. Like that to me was worth every penny because I wanted to be the best. There's not one book. That's a fallacy that a lot of people have. It's the consistency of doing those things over and pumping good into your mind and your heart all day long.
I love it, man. Great response. There's somebody out there right now that's listening to your journey. They love everything that you had to say and they believe in it, but they have that little voice in their head that says that maybe they're not strong enough, they're not smart enough, or they just don't have enough resources. What's the one thing that you say to that person to get them to just take action?
Yeah, like success is one of the trickiest things out there. And the reason why is because it's disguised as hard work. Like it just is, dude. Like I have so many days that sucked ass. I had so many things go wrong. I had so many bad days, like when I was building this thing up. Right? But the ultimate thing is like you have to have a why that's big enough that it doesn't affect you. I always had huge whys. I had dream boards. I'll be honest, I like basically completed 2 entire dream boards now. Like I've done some things that I feel like I've been able to live 10 lifetimes, man. But I had to keep all that stuff in my prospecting room, on my shelf, on my desk, because you have a lot of bad days. Like there's the end of the day, like hard work sucks sometimes. Like sometimes real estate just sucks. Sometimes you have a full day or you put in 20, 30, 40 hours into a deal and it falls apart. Like that sucks. But like at the end of the day, it never affected me. It really didn't because my whys were much bigger than that. Like I knew this was all going to be a process. And you get to a spot eventually where you look back and you just honor yourself. Like, holy crap. Like, I'm so grateful for 20-year-old Jimmy. Like, that guy in his 20s was a freaking horse. I just never quit. And I always said, like, show up today for the person that you need to be one day that you don't even know. There's people in your future that are going to need you 10, 15, 20 years from now that you don't even know. And if you show up today, you'll be able to be there for them. But if you don't, then you're going to miss these opportunities where you could have really saved lives, literally. And so, I don't know, man, you got to have huge whys and you got to keep calling on those whys all the time. Like when I had my prospecting booth, I had pictures of my family. I had pictures of ex-girlfriends that said that I was no good. I had like quotes from the Dalai Lama to movies that I loved. Like I had so many things to motivate me because I needed all that. Like some days just really sucked. And I had to draw on all that to keep on the phones and keep doing my thing.
Man, I agree. They say that motivation is just like bathing, right? You get dirty every day, so you need daily motivation and those things to pull you through, which I completely agree with. For anybody who wants to stay connected with you, where can they find you at?
Yeah, the easiest way to find me is on my Instagram, and I get back to everybody unless you're just like text me and say, hey, but like anybody that has legitimate real estate questions and stuff, I like to help and give back. My Instagram is Mr. Jimmy Rex. So Jimmy, JIMYREX, and add me. I'm always posting a lot of trainings and coaching and things like that. I changed my model a few months back. I'm only doing free coaching from here on out. I make a lot more money selling real estate than I did coaching. So I enjoy the coaching. And so I still like to, do limited coaching, but all my content I put out is to help people. Like for every person that I reached up to, I try to reach down to somebody else. And so happy to help any way I can, but that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Love it, man. We'll definitely drop all those links in the show notes, and we appreciate you coming on. It's definitely been an honor to have you on the show, and it's a privilege to be able to watch your growth and watch you keep going, man. Remember Dream Nation and the dream we trust, but just as he said, you must take action and you must be consistent. Otherwise, it'll only merely be a fantasy. We'll see you on the next one. First, I want to say thank you for allowing me to walk with you on this real estate journey. If you've gotten anything out of this episode, do me a favor and head on over to iTunes if you have access and leave me a review. My whole goal is to make sure that I'm serving you all the right way. You're my tribe. You're who I care about. You're why I do this. So if you want to give me any type of thanks, or if you want to let me know whatever your thoughts or your feelings are from this episode or any other episode that you've listened to, leave me a rating or review. And also, if you're looking for more tips, strategies, and even resources when it comes to leveling up your real estate game, head on over to DreamNationAcademy.com. We have a really cool real estate section there, and it's something that I wish that I would have had when I first got started in real estate. So that's DreamNationAcademy.com. Don't wait. I'll see you on the other side.